Good afternoon. Welcome to the ACEC Maryland Leadership Program, and my name is Joel Oppenheimer, and today I will be presenting on Goal Setting for Success, which is a part of my Building a Better Life Concrete Steps for Success seminar series. I presented this 2 years ago to the previous class, leadership class of ACEC. And obviously today is virtual. I'm actually recording this exactly 1 week ahead of when it's going to be presented, because I like the way this software records a little bit more interactively, or a little bit better. So let me jump in and start with a book that I think every goal setter, every leader needs to read at one time. It's called Simon Sinek's Start With Why. I've listened to the audiobook, I've read the book, and I've seen his podcast. And just to make life easy, if you don't have time to read the book, or you don't want to buy it, or you don't want to take it from the library, you can always get onto his TED Talk, which is listed here. But all you have to do is Google Simon Sinek, Start With Why, TED Talk, and it will pop up. 18 minutes, easy enough for everyone to watch. What does Simon Sinek have to say about goals and leadership? Well, he says every leader starts with why. Why do we do whatever we do? And when you start with why, you're much more successful than you just start with what. What am I going to do today? When you know your why, the how and the what come naturally. He calls that the golden circle. So why am I here today? That's a good why. I am here to inspire you to take concrete steps to build a better life and achieve personal success. And today, I'm going to inspire you to learn why writing goals is valuable. You'll learn today how to write meaningful goals and how to write them regularly. And then you'll learn about some tools to help you write out your goals and action plans, and the importance of writing your goals regularly. And lastly, you can then take this knowledge and learn how to use goal setting methods to be a leader and write strategic plans for your company, your department, or even your family. So it all starts with a book I really like called 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. Stephen Covey wrote this book in 1989, and he has some great observations. When you're born, you're dependent on other people. Habit 1 of highly effective people is be proactive. Habit 2 is begin with the end in mind, and habit 3 is put first things first. Today, we're going to talk about a little bit about habit 1, but mostly about habit 2, begin with the end in mind, which is setting goals. Once you've accomplished habits 1, 2, and 3, with habit 3 being time management, you're then independent. You're the best you can be. It's a private victory. And then you can go on to habits 4, 5, and 6. From a leadership perspective, these are very important to working with other people, public victories. And I like habit 5 a lot, and I even have a whole hour-long course on that in my Building a Better Life series, and that's seek first to understand, then to be understood. This is called communicating for success. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. Now, as a leader, up and rising leader, habit 7 is critical. Sharpen the saw. We won't talk about that much today, but when you set your goals, you will inevitably be sharpening the saw. So let's start off with attitude, and there are 6 key words for success. And they're very important to not only being successful as a leader, they're also important for goal setting. And these words are, we become what we think about. Whatever you think about the most, you become. Why is that important for goal setting? The more you think about what you want, the more likely you will get it. Now, in my Attitudes for Success, I also give my first Building a Better Life series is Attitudes for Success, and we talk about the universal laws of success and achievement. And I have a list of them here, and we're going to spend a little bit of time on 2 of them, but in general, these are laws that are very important for success and achievement. They've been around forever, and if you don't abide by them, you might get hurt. Let me give you an example of a different type of universal law. We call it the universal law of physics, or otherwise known as the universal law of gravity. We learn about that law when we're very young, and we learn that if you step out of a second floor office building what will happen? You will fall at 32.2 feet per second, and then you'll hit something at the ground, and it won't be pretty. So we learn about this law of gravity, and we abide by it because we don't want to get hurt. Well, the universal laws of success and achievement are very similar. If you don't abide by them, you will get hurt. And they've been around a long time, and many people half know about them. Today we're going to talk about the granddaddy of the law and then one other law. This is called the law of cause and effect. And the law of cause and effect has been around forever. It says everything happens for a reason. For every effect, there's a specific cause. Now, your thoughts are causes, your conditions are effects. So when you think about something, which is what you will become, then the conditions that result will be the effects. Now, this law is so old, it has another name. It's called the law of sowing and reaping. And that's a simple law. For those who don't recall where it comes from, the law of sowing and reaping comes from the Bible. For what a man soweth, so shall he reap. Now, it's so logical that if you want to grow a garden, you need to first till the soil, then you need to fertilize the soil, put the seeds in, water it, let it grow, and continue to take care of the plants as they grow, and then eventually you'll be able to reap the harvest and enjoy the fruits of your labor. This is very similar to a 401k for a retirement. Now, here's an interesting violation of the law of cause and effect, or the law of sowing and reaping. I came across a statistic not too long ago that said the average millennial will change jobs 5 times in the first 15 years. And 42% of those people who change jobs will cash in their 401k every time they change a job. So that's a violation of the law of sowing and reaping. That's like your plant grows for 3 years, you cut it down. It grows for 3 more years, you cut it down. At the end of 15 years, you've cut down the plant 5 times, and you have 0. But you're 15 years closer to retirement. So that can hurt. That can be very painful. Now, there's a saying that goes with the law of cause and effect. It says if you keep doing what you've been doing, you keep getting what you've been getting. Old Texas saying says if all you ever do is all you ever did, then all you'll ever get is all you ever got. And to take this a step further, if you want to change your life, you have to change your thoughts. One way to change your thoughts is to write out your goals. And we'll talk about that in greater detail. Now, I want to go back to that quote. If you keep doing what you've been doing, you keep getting what you've been getting. If you walk out of this seminar and you walk out of your leadership program and you do nothing different, you just sit there and smile and say, that was interesting, and then you don't change anything, you don't try something new, you will violate the law of cause and effect. Because if you want to change your future, you got to change something today. And you change things today by changing your thoughts. Another very important law to goal setting is the law of attraction. And it says we are all living magnets attracting people, situations, and circumstances that harmonize with our dominant thoughts. Birds of a feather flock together. If you want to soar like an eagle, don't hang with the turkeys. And there's actually a book out there and a DVD video that called The Secret by Rhonda Byrne. And what she did was she was about 50 years old. She worked in the movie industry, and she took a film crew around with her and interviewed the top 15 motivational speakers or thereabouts and asked them, what do you think is the secret of the universe? That's why it's called The Secret. And the answer they gave overwhelmingly was the law of attraction. What you want, what you think about, you attract into your life. Now, the law of attraction works in strange ways. You got to watch out for negative vibration words. If you tell a little kid, don't spill the milk, what happens? They spill the milk. Because of the law of attraction, our subconscious does not understand negative commands. So we have to be very careful. When you say don't spill the milk, what you're doing is you're actually saying spill the milk, don't. And your mind visualizes spilling the milk, and that's what ends up happening. There's a famous story of a baseball manager who went out in the World Series. He gave the ball to a relief pitcher, and he said, whatever you do, don't give up a home run or we'll lose the game. First pitch, home run. Why? Law of attraction. In that pitcher's mind is don't give up a home run. Give up a home run, don't. Be careful about negative vibration words. Don't, not, no. Instead, when you want a goal, you need to be positive. What do I want? Instead of telling a little kid, don't spill the milk, you can say, be careful with your milk. Instead of telling a teenager, don't be late tonight, which will encourage them to be late, you should just use the phrase, be home on time. So keep that in mind, because that's very important when we get to goal setting. Goal setting needs to be positive commands to your subconscious. So let's jump into goal setting. Begin with the end in mind. Habit 2. If you don't know where you're going, all roads will get you there. And if you don't have goals for yourself, you're doomed forever to work to achieve the goals of others. How many people have ever taken a vacation where you don't know where you're going to go, but you have some money, and you decide to get in the car, you put the family in the car, and you're just going to start driving west. And wherever you go, whenever you get there, you'll turn right on one freeway or left. You'll figure out what you want to do as you go along. That's a tough way to get to a place. But yet, if you go through life without setting goals, you're taking a vacation without a map, without planning out your end destination, and then hopefully how to get there. So why should we set goals? Well, first of all, it enables us to set direction of where we want to go, just like the driver on vacation. It enables us to grow consciously in the right direction. What do we want to become? Where do we want to head? It enables us to be aware of what we want and then how to set about doing it. When you sit down and write out your goals, you think of your values. You think about what's important to you, and then how important it is will determine how fast you get there. And also we set goals to measure accomplishments. So one goal might be, I'm going to have X amount of money for my retirement by a certain age. That's a great goal. And then you can measure how you're doing on the road to getting to retirement. So why do people not set goals? Well, normally if this were a live audience, I'd sit there and throw that out as a question. We treat it like Family Feud, and we'd say, what's the number one reason people don't set goals? So you're all thinking, what's the number one reason? I'll answer that one. Fear of failure. People are afraid to set goals because if they write down a goal or set a goal and they don't achieve it, people laugh at them. Now, I'm going to explain a little bit about how I use goal books, and I am on my 14th goal book. Here are some of them. I'm not afraid of failure. Actually, leadership is all about failing, then getting up and continuing along and figuring out how to do it better. Leaders always fail. They always have mistakes, and that's how they learn how to get to their destination. So you can't be afraid of failure, and the way I get around that is most of my goals I don't share with anybody. They're my private goals. It's almost my diary. And that way, if you don't quite get there, so what? And if you have a goal to have $1 million by age 60, and let's say you only have $800,000 by age 60, it's not failure. You just have to say by 62 I'll have $1 million or something like that. Fear of success. Some people don't set goals because they're afraid that if they achieve them, what will they do next? People will ridicule me. This happened in my life. My in-laws, my wife and I decided to buy and build a brand new house. And it was not cheap at the time. And we had this excitement about it. Well, they did everything they could to discourage us. Why? That's trying to instill a fear of success. Oh, you won't have enough money. What if the economy goes bad? What if this happens? What if that happens? So fear of success is another reason people don't set goals. Some people don't set goals because they can avoid risking things. They avoid change. Change is scary. But when you set goals, it helps you get there in a methodical way. Some people don't set goals because now what do? They have low self-esteem. I'm not worthy of having a real nice house. I'm not worthy of having $1 million at age 60. Some people don't set goals because they say they don't have the time. Now, I'm going to tell you that when I fill out my goal book, I do it about once a week, and it takes about 30 minutes, and I fill out 2 pages. And the truth of the matter is, there's an old quote in my time management course that says, there's never enough time for anything, but there's always enough time for the most important things. Anything we think is important, we will find the time to do. So if you think it's important to write out your goals, you'll find the time. And 30 minutes a week, that doesn't take that much time away from everything else you do. It feels silly to set goals, no question about it. The first time you write out goals, you're going to look at it and say, gosh, this is really weird. But I'll tell you, the first time you put on a seatbelt, it felt weird. The first time you got behind a car and started learning how to drive, that felt weird too. But eventually, you get used to it, you learn how to do it, and it becomes natural, just like goal setting. You're not sold on the value. Why should I set goals? What good could goals be? Well, I will spend a little time in a little while. What is the value of writing out your goals? I use the word write out your goals, not just think about them. There's a tremendous value, and I'll explain that a little bit later, and you don't know how. Well, I have about 45 minutes left, and I'm going to try and sell you on the value of writing out your goals, and I'm going to explain how. A quick way to look at goals, and by the way, this is just an overview. You can't do everything about goal setting in 1 hour. But there is an acronym called SMART goals. And SMART goals stand for goals need to be specific, they need to be measurable, they need to be attainable or achievable, they need to be relevant and realistic, and they need to be time-bound. So let me give you an example of, let's say you write out a goal, and your goal is, I want to be happier. That is a goal. That's a good goal. It's better than no goal. However, is it a SMART goal? Is it specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time-bound? Well, I'm going to turn that I want to be happier from a dumb goal into a SMART goal. My wife and I love to travel. We love to go overseas to Europe. And before the pandemic, we were traveling all the time. We were going once a year for 2 weeks. There's a reason we went once a year for approximately 2 weeks to Europe and see the world. That's because I had a SMART goal, and travel makes me happy. It makes me very happy. And therefore, instead of saying, I am happier, I said, my SMART goal is I take my wife on at least a 2-week vacation each year to travel around the world to see unique sites, to sightsee, to learn about history and culture, to see majestic man-made and natural sites, to share love, and to create lifelong memories. That's my SMART goal. Is it specific? Oh yeah, it describes exactly what makes me happier. Is it measurable? Once a year, 2-week vacation. Is it attainable or achievable? I have enough vacation at my job. I have enough money to do it. Is it relevant and realistic? Yes, it helps me with my major definite purpose, which you'll learn a little bit more in a few minutes. And is it time bound? It certainly is. Every year I take this 2-week vacation. So let's go over some other principles of goal setting. First principle is dream big dreams. And here's a quote from Michelangelo. The greater danger for most of us is not that our aim is too high and we miss it, but it's too low and we reach it. You need to put stretch in your goals. If your goal this year is to get a 1% salary increase, that's fine. Maybe nobody's getting increases, but doesn't have a lot of stretch. Or if your goal is to be promoted in 10 years from now to the next position, that doesn't sound like it has a lot of stretch. You need to dream big dreams. Goals must be written. The first 4 words are the most critical words I'll tell you today. You need to write out your goals. There's something about writing. Now, if you type out your goals into a smartphone or into an iPad, that's great, or onto your computer. There's nothing wrong with typing them. If you go a step further, there's something about writing out your goals that connects all your senses to your subconscious and helps it become embedded. So I will explain that when I want to write out my goals, I use what I call a goal book. And these goal books are simply, Well, I get these at Staples. They're about $1 a piece, and I usually write the front and back of a sheet of paper, all the goals I can think of, and I write them out with a pen and ink. I don't scratch them out. I don't change it. And I write it out about once a week. I write out all my goals. So why do I write them out? There's something about writing out your goals that makes a commitment to your subconscious. And when I use my goal book and write them out every week, that creates a commitment. Now, where did I learn about writing out the goals? Well, a long time ago, I happened to be really into a learning time of my life. So I would go to the library, and this is so old that back in the 2001, 2002, 2003, I'd go to the library and take out books from the shelf. They weren't books, they were audiobooks. And I had a cassette player in my car. And one of the early ones I went out and got was this cassette set by a guy named ZIGLAR. Now, the funny thing is, I went to the library, saw this thing that said Goals by ZIGLAR. I said, that's a funny name. Let me try it. I pulled it off the shelf, popped the first cassette into my cassette player, and the first thing I hear is, howdy, y'all. My name's ZIGLAR. I'm from Texas. And I'm thinking to myself, hi, my name's Joel Oppenheimer. I'm from Baltimore, and I'm taking you right back to the library. But I said to myself, I already took this out. Let me listen a little further. And the next thing you know, I listened to the whole thing, and I found out, wow, writing goals, setting goals is very important. So this became the heart of my goal setting. And Zig, I'll show you a little bit later how he says to set your goals. But in the meantime, how important is it to write out your goals? Once I heard that, I must have done something really funny. I actually remember, if you keep doing what you've been doing, you keep getting what you've been getting. I actually took a step and listened to ZIGLAR, and I wrote out all my goals. So just to show you, on a scratch piece of paper, I wrote out 2 pages of goals. I just listed them. They weren't well written. They didn't follow all the rules that I'll explain later. My first goal, I wrote at the top, be, do, and have. And that was what ZIGLAR said. Write down everything you want to be, do, or have. My first goal is nice beach house in Rehoboth. Another goal on the sheet was raise my children to be happy, well-adjusted, successful children and adults. A third one was maintain an excellent relationship with my wife. Learn more. These aren't well-written goals, and now I write them much better, but they were still written goals. Down the page, I have an interesting one. It says, have a, and in quotes, Worthington Park type house. Now, we all have that type of house. I was living in a house about a half a mile from, quote, the new houses being built across the street and down the block. These were Worthington Park. They were all about 50% to 75% more than my current house in value. We'd go into the model, we'd look at it, and we'd drool, and we'd sit there and say things, gosh, I wish we could have it. Well, I wrote it down. Now, what does that do? Well, ironically, I found this goal sheet in my nightstand a couple years after I wrote it. And my nightstand happened to be in my Worthington Park house, which is the house I still live in. 2 years after I wrote that goal, I was living in a Worthington Park type house. When you write out your goals, good things happen. A few other instances about how important it is to write out your goals. There's a book out there called Brian Tracy's Goals. Now, if you want my best advice, I strongly encourage you, go online on Amazon. I don't know, it varies in price. The paperback might be $15 or $20. If you're really cheap, you can get it at the library. You can also get it in an audiobook version. So go out and buy Brian Tracy's Goals. Now, speaking of writing out your goals, Brian Tracy tells a story in here. He researched and found that there was a study done at Harvard Business School. And what they did was in 1979, they had the graduating class and of MBA students, and they asked them a simple question. How many of you have taken the time to write out your goals in detail and write out detailed plans of actions to accomplish your goals? The response was, what percent do you think wrote out their goals in detail with detailed plans of actions? These are smart guys from the Harvard MBA school. It was actually 4%. Only 4% of the people graduating in 79 wrote out their goals in detail. Then they asked, how many of you have thought about your goals in detail but just didn't write them down? That was 13%. So the remaining 13 and 4, 7, 83% had not really written out their goals in detail or thought about their goals in detail. They all had big goals. They wanted to make a lot of money, but they weren't very rigid. They hadn't thought about them in detail and they hadn't written them down. They came back 10 years later in 1989 and interviewed the same class. And what they found is, of the 13% who had taken the time to write out their goals, they found out that they were earning on average double what the rest of the class was earning who had not thought about their goals. Now, what about the 4% who had written out their goals in detail and written out detailed plans of actions? They were earning on average 10 times as much as the other 87% of the class, of the other 97%. Excuse me. So, writing out your goals is very valuable. Now, let's take one more thing out of this book, Goals. Brian Tracy talks about USA Today, the newspaper. Yeah, we're now in March. So some people do New Year's resolutions. I know a lot of people do New Year's resolutions, and most people don't write them down. Well, USA Today did a study. Back in 2003, I think it was February 2003, they did a study, and they asked of those who had written down their New Year's resolutions from a year earlier, how many stuck to it? And for those who had New Year's resolutions but never wrote them down, how many stuck to it? What they found was, of those who did not write down their New Year's resolutions, only 4% stuck with it a year later. The simple act of writing out your New Year's resolutions, 46% of the people who had written out their New Year's resolutions in 2002 stuck with it for one full year. Now, I know this is true. In pre-pandemic years, if you've ever gone to a gym or a health club in January, it's hard to get on the equipment. It is so crowded there because everybody has a resolution to get healthy and lose weight and start the year off right. Get those pounds off from Christmas and New Year's. The good news is most of those people don't write it down. And what ends up happening? Come back in mid-February and the gym is empty again. You can get on any equipment you want. Just the act of writing out your goals will help you deliver your goals. So, goals need to be written in the present tense. So they need to start off with being now. They need to be personal. So every goal needs to start off with one word. They need to be your goals. So the one word that your goal needs to start with is I. So if you look at my first goal book, which is dated January 4th, 04, which must have been right after I finished reading Brian Tracy's goals, he says to go out and get these goal books. And every one of my goals starts with the word I. That's because it's personal. They need to be positive. I've already explained how important it is. Your subconscious doesn't understand negative commands. If you write out a goal, I quit smoking, what did your subconscious just hear? What word? Smoking. So you wonder why you want a cigarette and how come it's so hard to quit smoking. How about my lungs are smoke-free or my lungs are healthy by a certain date at a certain time. Then the same thing can be true as if you want to lose weight. If you sit there and go, I lose weight and get to the weight of such and such, you picture weight. How about I am at a healthy weight of 155 pounds by X time, and then all of a sudden your subconscious says, we can do that. Goals need to be visual. They need to be emotional. You need to own them. You need to understand why you want to accomplish it. There's that word why. And visual, sometimes if you really want this type of house, a beach house or something, you could actually get a piece of tag board, put a picture of the house you want in it, put the picture of the town you want on it, put a floor plan inside of the house you want, and put in some other things, and then put that in a place where you look at it every day. The more visual it is, the more you're embedding it into your subconscious. Now, you heard that one of the early goals I wrote way back when on this scratch piece of paper, well, the first page of my goal book that Brian Tracy said get a goal book in January 04 was, I own a comfortable beach house in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. Well, that's a good goal. And then you'll see throughout my books, throughout my goal books, I own a Rehoboth Beach house, except I got much better at writing it. I got more descriptive. Eventually, in some of my later books, I did much smarter goals. I own a Rehoboth Beach house within, let's see, if I recall correctly, the goal was within 3 blocks of the boardwalk and within 6 blocks north or south of Rehoboth Avenue by my 65th birthday. That's a good goal. So you'll see that throughout my goal books. And you know how I made that visual and kind of engaged my emotional? I put a screensaver and took a picture of a beach house along the boardwalk, much more than I could afford at that time, still more than I can afford now, but it was right on the boardwalk, beautiful beach house in Rehoboth Beach, and guess what I looked at every time I turned on my computer? Up would pop my beach house. That's making it visual. That's making it emotional. Now, the last thing on this bullet is reticular activating system. That's a part of your brain that screens out everything in the world except what's important to you. Your brain sees so much information and only registers what you care about. So, how does a reticular activating system work? I'll give you a live example. My wife and I decided a couple of years ago that we were going to buy her a new car. We settled in on a Honda CR-V. We already had a Honda Pilot. It lasted 14 years. So when we started shopping for that Honda CR-V, our reticular activating system went to work. All of a sudden, wherever we drove, we saw Honda CR-Vs. We saw them on the Beltway in the direction we were going. We saw them on the Beltway going the opposite direction. We saw them at every stop sign. We saw them in parking lots. We turn on the TV and there was an ad for CR-Vs. We'd open up a magazine and there was an ad for CR-Vs. Newspaper, wherever we looked, we saw Honda CR-Vs. That's our reticular activating system. It's the law of attraction. When you want something, your subconscious finds it. Now, were all those cars always there? Were they always ads in magazines and on TV? Yes. But they weren't important to us until it became a written goal of ours to go get that. So that's how you engage your reticular activating system. Goals need to be balanced. We have the what, the why, and the how goals. What goals are business, career, and financial? Why goals are personal, family, and health? And how goals are all about your professional and personal development. They need to be balanced like a three-legged stool. You can't spend all your time trying to grow a business and a career and forget about your personal life and your family or your health. And if you forget about your professional development while you're trying to grow that business, all of a sudden you will be behind younger people and eventually you will be let go because there's always someone who is up on the latest information. And by the way, that same person who only looks at his business and works 7 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock every day, 6 days a week, their family, what happens to them? Their health. Do they take care of themselves? Often not. So three-legged stool, if one leg's too long, it becomes unbalanced. Then you need a major definite purpose, which I'll talk about in a moment. And the final step is a plan of action to accomplish your goals. If you really want to get your goals faster than most people, having a plan of action will help you reach that goal faster. So let's do a little exercise. Now, there was a 2-page handout that you were sent, and I'm going to actually, you don't need that 2-page if you didn't print it out. Just grab a pen, a piece of paper, and what I'm going to do is I am going to give you a few questions. I'm only going to give you 30 or 60 seconds to do it. This is a quick exercise because whatever comes out of your subconscious is usually the right answer when you're rushed. So the first question is kind of not on the screen. It's at the top of the sheet of paper, but if you don't have the pre-printed exercise sheet, just write 1, 2, and 3. And what I want you to do is I want you to write out the 3 biggest goals you've accomplished so far in your life. What are the 3 biggest goals you've accomplished so far in your life? And you may begin now. So 30 seconds. Write down 1, 2, and 3. 3 biggest goals you've accomplished so far in your life. "15 seconds. So this is a warm-up question. This is really just to pat yourself on the back and say, hey, even if I didn't write out my goals, I've accomplished a lot, because you're all sitting here. You all have college educations. I'm sure you're engineers. Maybe you're married. Maybe you have those kids. Whatever those 3 big goals are, you've done a lot already. How much more can you do when you write out your goals? Let's do question number 1. And this is also 30 seconds. So, in 30 seconds, what are your 3 most important lifetime goals right now? Just what are your 3 biggest future lifetime goals right now? And there's 15 seconds left. The reason I do this exercise is timed is because whatever jumps out of your mind, out of the gut, your quick thoughts, 5 seconds left, is usually the right answer. Time's up. Okay. Now, let's change my watch and set it up for 60 seconds. And here comes your second question. You'll have 60 seconds, which is a minute. In 60 seconds, list your 5 basic values in life. What 5 things do you value most in life? Okay, so for those with the pre-printed, write out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just make a list. Doesn't have to be in order. However, the second half of this is I want you, once you've listed all 5 things, your 5 things you value most in life, I want you to then prioritize it. 1 next to the most important, 2 next to the second most important, all the way down to the 5th value. What 5 values do you consider most important in your life, and then put them in priority order? 15 seconds. Okay. 2, 1, 0. Time's up. All right. And now, here comes your next question. And there used to be, let's see, a xylophone here. Let's put on a little sound. I don't even know how to spell xylophone. We'll do twinkle. Okay. Anyway, stop. Here we go. Next question. In 60 seconds, what would you do if you won $1 million? List it, everything you would do with $1 million, or you cannot have it. So, you just learned you got $1 million. We'll call it tax-free. What would you do with $1 million? By the way, this exercise is a great way to say if I took money out of my life, if I had what I wanted, what would I do differently? If you want to go a step further, try this exercise another time. Give yourself a minute. And what would you do if you won $5 million tax-free or $10 million tax-free? Write it out. And these are ways to find out what's important to you. What are your values? 15 seconds. Five seconds. Okay, time is up. All right, and the last 4th question of this quickie quiz question is in 60 seconds, what would you do if you found out today you only had 6 months left to live? You could be perfectly healthy. You do not have the extra $1 million from question 3. What would you do if you learned you'll be perfectly healthy for 6 months, and 6 months from today, and this is March 25th, is that correct? 6 months from today, you were learned you will be dropping dead. What would you do in those 6 months? You have 30 seconds left. Make a list of what you'd want to accomplish if you had 6 months left to live. 15 seconds. All right. 5 seconds. Okay. Well, that's the quickie exercises. Just a good way to get in touch with your feelings. Now, I've done these exercises over time, and I've made my lists, and I even marked them in the book. So these are ways, like, for instance, if I won $1 million tax-free, I would buy some of that Rehoboth Beach house. I would pay for my daughter to go to a fully private school and pay for her entire graduate education. I would take a 30-day cruise from San Francisco to Tahiti. I take one major month-long trip each year to discover Australia, China, Scandinavia, South America, and I would take my kids on a vacation for 1 to 2 weeks every single year. Now, here's the ironic thing about what that exercise does. These are my goals. If you look throughout my goal book, you will see those same goals are written out. These are the same goals I write out every week. I take a 2-week trip to Europe. I take my kids on a 1-week vacation. I pay for my kids to go to the school of their choice. They're done with it, but that was a goal in my goal book. I pay for my children to attend the university of their choice loan-free. As a matter of fact, someone once asked me with goal books, do you write the same goals every time, every week? And the answer is most of them are the same. The order changes somewhat. However, there are periods where some drop off the pages and other ones come on. So on my first few pages of the goal book, I have a Rehoboth Beach house. Then I had a goal that said, I pay for my children. When my son was about to go to college, I pay for my children to go to the college of their choice loan-free. All of a sudden, the beach house didn't seem very important nor realistic. I couldn't subconsciously write down that I would do both. So the beach house disappeared from my goals. Then I added a goal that says I pay for my children to go to the graduate school of their choice. And they both took advantage of me. And they both went to law school, and I paid for it loan-free. Once I was done with law school, all of a sudden, that beach house started showing up on the pages again. And 4 years ago in January, I finally convinced my wife, because that's part of the goal, is if it's your goal, not your spouse's goal, it's hard to accomplish it. Once I hooked her, and it was a very simple way, I said, gee, our children are getting older. Our son's about to get married. His fiancée loves the ocean. If we get a beach house, she may bring our son to come visit us, and eventually when we have grandchildren, maybe they'll bring the grandchildren to the ocean. That was the reason to get a beach house. And somehow it worked because I got a beach house 4 years ago. So let's talk about major definite purpose. Here are some ways to get in touch with your major definite purpose. You can write out your eulogy, or your life story, or an epitaph. Eulogy is pretend you're at your own funeral and write out what you would want someone to say at your funeral. You can write out what you'd want a child, a spouse, a friend, someone you worked with, someone from the community. And if you write your own eulogy, it's actually a series of goals. So on the third page of my first goal book, I wrote out my eulogy, and I'll just read real quickly what I wrote that my child would say, and this would have been my daughter. I kind of imagined what she would say at my funeral. My dad was a great dad. He was supportive and loving. He taught me how to be successful. He shared time with me. He showed me the world and gave me opportunities to experience life. He taught me skee ball and helped me become a good tennis player. Most importantly, he set an example of how to live life to its fullest. There are a whole bunch of small goals in that. And then when I wrote what my wife was going to say, that too had a whole bunch of goals. Then a few years later, after I'd been doing this for a while, I wrote a great eulogy. And it's because I now had a major definite purpose, and it was so easy to write what I would want said about me at my funeral. Now, you could, if you think a funeral is kind of, oh, geez, that sounds so morbid. How about your life story? Think of yourself as 85 years old, and what would be your life story looking back on your life? That's another way to come up with your goals. To get to your major definite purpose, one last way is an epitaph. What would you want on your gravestone? So let me share with you. After I've been writing out my goals for quite a while, I came up with, this is what I'd want on my gravestone. A positive life of a positive and grateful life of loving, learning, living, and helping others achieve success. To me, that's what I want. That's my life. Now, my wife sat in this seminar one time, and she saw what I wanted to put on my stone. She pulled me aside afterwards, and she said, you know, that's awfully wordy, and it looks expensive. To carve all that in a gravestone, that's expensive. And then I got the bright idea that, well, if she's not going to pay for it, I better go out and get it carved now, and I can put my birthday in, and just all she has to pay for is the day I die. Truth is, I don't care what you put on my gravestone, but what I do care is how do I live my life? And this is my major definite purpose. This is my mission statement of my life. And at the top of every page of my goal books, in the last 10 goal books, I always start off with, I lead a positive and grateful life of loving, learning, living, and helping others achieve success. That is my mission statement. That is everything I want to do. Today, I am helping you achieve success. If you follow the law of cause and effect and try some different things. By the way, I did shorten it. If my wife gets cheap, he made a difference. So I'm going to go quickly now through other ones. You'll have the handout. Zig Ziglar in his goal setting book, and he also has, if you don't have cassette player anymore, you can actually see his video on YouTube, or you can get his books that talk about how to set goals. His goal setting style is write everything you want to be, do, or have. Then after 24 to 48 hours, articulate a why. Why do you want to do it? If you can't come up with a good reason, it's emotionally not very strong, eliminate it. Balance the list with both physical, mental, spiritual, social, financial, career, family. So it needs to be a balanced list of goals. Go a step further and ask for each of the remaining goals. Will this goal make me happier? Will it make me healthier, more prosperous, make me more secure, make more friends, bring me peace of mind, improve my family relationships? These are all the elements of being successful. And you answer that question. Then you narrow down that list and you make sure you have a balanced list of goals, some stretch goals, some long range, short range, daily, ongoing, specific goals. Check for negativity. Once again, negative goals are hard to accomplish. And ask these 5 questions. Is it really my goal? That means it starts with I and you own it. Is it morally right and fair to everyone involved? Will it take me closer to or further away from my major definite purpose? Can I commit myself to start and finish this project? And can I visualize myself reaching this goal? Then narrow the list down to 4 goals to focus on and make those your major goals. That's his way of doing it. Brian Tracy, in his book Goals, he has what's called a balanced goal exercise. So let me give you an example of what that is. Let's see if we can get back into focus. Don't know why I'm not in focus. But list all of your goals for your why, what, and how goals. And we talked about that. And then you prioritize your goals. A, B, or C, 1, 2, or 3. Next to every goal. I'll explain that in a second. Then you need a plan of action. Take your A1 goal and list your actions needed to accomplish it and prioritize those actions. But let's go a step further. First, you can come up with a goal setting form. If you don't want to use a goal book, you can do this on a form that is in your handout. You first list all of your goals. Brainstorm a list of goals and make sure they're balanced goals. There's a what, the why, and the how goals. Then, in the first column, put an A, B, or C next to every one of them by prioritizing it. Then, in the second column, look at every A goal, every B goal, and every C goal and put a 1, 2, or 3 next to each A goal, each B goal, and each C goal. And what you're doing is your subconscious is prioritizing the goals. And then you should work on your A1 goals. There could be more than one. Your A2 goals and so forth. Now, Brian Tracy goes on. He has a way to do goal accomplishment. By the way, you can use this for your company. You can use this for a department. Identify a goal and write it down, and you can also prioritize it like the previous form. What are the benefits of accomplishing this goal? What are the obstacles and barriers? What skills and knowledge are needed to accomplish it? What individuals, groups, companies do I need to work with? What is my plan of action to reach the goal, and when do I want to reach it? So what I've done is I've taken all those questions and put it into what I call a goal-setting action plan form. When you have your A1 goal, take it, write it out on the form. Then what are the benefits? Fill that out. What are the obstacles and barriers? What are skills, knowledge, and so forth? Fill that all out. Next, write out all the action items needed to accomplish that goal. And then you prioritize your action items. Put an A, B, or C in the first column and a 1, 2, or 3 in the second column. Take every A1 action item and work on that before you get to the C's or the B's. Once you finish all the A action items, then you get into the B action items. This is the way to prioritize your goals and take advantage of Pareto's 80-20 rule. So here's an example of my own life. I exercise by walking at least 3 miles or 40 minutes every day. That's an old goal. I walk 4 miles every day in 50 minutes. I live healthily to at least age 102.5 and beyond. That is a real goal written down in my goal book. I am promoted to the next level by 1/1/2022. I am financially independent by 6/20/22. I have enough money that I could retire if I choose to. That happens to be my 65th birthday. I go down and put A's, B's, and C's. Then I put 1s, 2s, and 3s. My A1 goal is I'm financially independent by 6/20. So I'm going to take these 2 off, and I'm going to pretend I filled out that whole form, but I'm just going to show you the action items. So here's an action item. I read books and listen to audiobooks on financial planning. I save at least 10% of my after-tax income and invest it. I talk to financial planners about my current fiscal situation, financial situation. I invest in index mutual funds. I sell extra clutter in my house and invest the money. Then I go A, B, and C, and 1, 2, and 3. And if I had a long list, I'd have some C's. I should work on A1s before I do A2s, and then I should work on A2 before I do B1. I do the same thing about living healthily to 102.5. I actually have a list of 10 things for that, but here's just 3 of them. I walk every day. I eat healthy meals. And I have an annual physical and go to a doctor, go to specialists for any significant issues. Then I put a 1, 2, or 3, and that's the order I need to go after these goals. So let's wrap up by saying, here's some tips for goal setting. First of all, write your goals down. Write your goals regularly. Once a week is a great amount, but if you do it once a month, that's fine. If you do it once a year, it's better than nothing, but write them down. Use a goal book. I've talked to you about my goal books. If you need it, I'll send you one. It sits there, and someone one time I sent them a goal book, and they opened it up, and they sent me a message back saying it's empty. Yes, it's empty. You have to fill it out. So go out and get a goal book. Remember, goals need to be written. They need to be personal, positive, present tense, visual, emotional. Develop your major definite purpose. Read a book on goals. I recommend Brian Tracy's Goals or any other goal-setting book. And I'm going to wrap it up. This was Friedrich Nietzsche. He who has a strong enough why can bear almost any how. When you have your strong why, you'll figure out how to do it. That's what goal setting is all about. A goal properly set is halfway achieved. And a goal without a deadline is just a dream. And to quote Brian Tracy, goal setting is the master skill of success. Leadership and goal setting go hand in hand. And don't forget, we become what we think about. So when you write out your goals, that's what you're thinking about, and that's what you become. So one of the best goal setters I can think of is Rocky Balboa. And in 1976, he had a very powerful goal. He wanted to stay in the ring 15 rounds with the current Apollo Creed, the current champion of the world. And that was his goal. And he thought about it. And you need to not only think about your goals, but you need to write them regularly, write out your action plans, accomplish your goals, and be an effective leader. I'd like to conclude with a poem. And this poem used to be, there it is. This poem is one I listened to on an audiobook back in 1989. It was a leadership by Lou Heckler, and it's called It's All About Happiness is a Journey, Not a Destination, and goal setting helps you define your destination. And this is called The Station by Robert Hastings. Now, I just want to share the background happens to be a photo taken from Bayside, Delaware, which is the development where I now have a beach house. It's not Rehoboth Beach, but I think it's better. I love it. I've been there 4 years, and this was actually a sunset. If you prefer to turn around, pretend you're looking east, it could be a sunrise, but this happened to be a sunset from 2 miles away from my beach house and my development. And let me read this poem. Tucked away in our subconscious is an idyllic vision. We see ourselves on a long trip that spans the continent. We're traveling by train. Out the window we drink in the passing scene of cars on nearby highways, of children waving at a crossing, of cattle grazing on a distant hillside, of smoke pouring from a power plant, of row upon row of corn and wheat, of flatlands and valleys, of mountains and rolling hillsides, of city skylines and village halls. But uppermost in our mind is the final destination. On a certain day, at a certain hour, we will pull into the station. Bands will be playing and flags will be waving. Once we get there, so many wonderful dreams will come true, and the pieces of our lives will fit together like a completed jigsaw puzzle. How restlessly we pace the aisles, damning the minutes for loitering, waiting for this station. When we reach the station, that will be it, we cry. When I'm 18, that will be it. When I buy a new 450 SL Mercedes-Benz. When I put the last kid through college. When I've paid off my mortgage. When I win a promotion. When I reach the age of retirement. I shall live happily ever after. Sooner or later, we must realize there is no station, no one place to arrive at once and for all. The true joy of life is the trip. The station is only a dream. It constantly outdistances us. So stop pacing the aisles and counting the miles. Instead, climb more mountains, eat more ice cream, go barefoot more often, swim more rivers, watch more sunsets, laugh more and cry less. Life must be lived as we go along. The station will come soon enough. Thank you very much, and become great leaders. Write out your goals, and thanks for listening for this past hour. I am available to take questions. Thank you. Here's my contact information if you need to reach me, and behind that in the handout is a recommended book list, not just goal-setting books, but all the books that are my favorite books that I've read or listened to. Once again, have a great day, and good luck with your goal setting.